So there are three stages of prenatal development. The first is germinal stage, and then embryonic stage, and fetal stage. Now let's take a look at what happens to the developing baby in each of the stage below. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi everyone, how are you today? I hope you all fine and healthy. Welcome back to Child Development subject with me, Miss Dyah. Today we are going to learn about our new materials. It is about phase of development. So there are several points to learn today. The first is the definition of developmental stage theory, and then the second one is about the phases of human development, and then the third one is about the characteristic of every stage of human development. So for the first point, we are going to talk about the developmental stage or developmental phases theories. So what is actually it is? It is actually the theory that divides child development into distinct stages or phases which are characterized by qualitative differences in behavior. There are actually a number of different views about the way in which psychological and physical development proceed throughout the lifespan. In addition to individual differences in development, developmental psychologists generally agree that development occurs in an orderly way and in different areas simultaneously. There are actually many experts propose some theories related to child development, such as Sigmund Freud, and then Erik Erikson, Abraham Maslow, Maria Montessori, Jean Piaget, or Lev Vygotsky. As you may imagine, developmental psychologists often break down developmental according to various phases of life. And then each of these periods of development represents a time when different milestones are typically achieved. People may face particular challenges at each point, and developmental psychologists can often help people who might be struggling with problems to get back on track. When we are talking about the phase or stages or development, we probably find different numbers of stages. Perhaps you have 3 stages like childhood, adulthood, and old age, or maybe 4 stages like infancy, childhood, adolescence, and adulthood. But here, I will classify this development into several stages according to several experts that I have already summarized. Those are, as you can see here, prenatal, and then infancy, adulthood, and then early childhood, middle childhood, adolescent, early adulthood, middle adulthood, and late adulthood or old age. Now let's discuss about the first stage, prenatal. So in the first stage, it is called prenatal. So there are 3 stages of prenatal development. The first is germinal stage, and then embryonic stage, and fetal stage. Now let's take a look at what happens to the developing baby in each of the stage below. So the first, the germinal stage in week 1 to 2. It begins at conception when the sperm and egg cell unite in one of 2 fallopian tubes. The fertilized egg, known as a zygote, then moves towards the uterus, a journey that can take up to a week to complete. Cell division begins approximately 24 to 36 hours after conception. And then the next stage, it is called embryonic stage in week 3 to 8. At this point, the mass of cells is now known as embryo. The beginning of the 3rd week after conception marks the embryonic period, and a time when the mass of cells becomes distinct as a human. The embryonic stage plays an important role in the development of the brain. And the last stage, it is called a fetal stage. It is in week 9 to 40. Once cell differentiation is mostly complete, the embryo enters the next stage and becomes known as a fetus. The fetal period of a prenatal development marks more important changes in the brain. The period of developmental stage begins during the 9th week and lasts until birth. The next stage after prenatal, it is called infancy or toddlerhood. So the first year and a half to 2 years of life are ones of dramatic growth and change. A newborn with a keen sense of hearing and but very poor vision is transformed into a walking, talking toddler and within a relative short period of time. Caregivers are also transformed from someone who manages feeding and sleep schedules to a constantly moving guide and safety inspector for a mobile, energetic style. And then for the third phase or stages of development is called early childhood. It is referred to as the preschool years, consisting of the years which follow toddlerhood and precede formal schooling. As the 3-5-year-old, the child is busy learning language, is gaining a sense of self and greater independence, and is beginning to learn the workings of the physical world. This knowledge does not come quickly. However, the preschoolers may initially have interesting conceptions of the size, time, space, and also distance. The next stage is called middle childhood. So the ages of 6 through 11 comprise middle childhood, and much of what children experience at this age is connected to their involvement in the early grades of schools. So now the world becomes one of learning and testing new academic skills, and by assessing one's abilities and accomplishment by making comparison between self and also others. Growth rates slow down and children are able to refine their motor skills at this point in life. And children begin to learn about social relationships beyond the family through interactions with friends and fellow students. And then the next stage or phase is called adolescence. So adolescence is actually a period of dramatical physical change marked by an overall physical growth spurt and sexual maturations known as puberty. It is also a time of cognitive changes as the adolescent begins to think of new possibilities and consider abstract concepts such as love, fear, and freedom. And ironically, adolescents have a sense of invincibility that puts them at greater risk of dying from accidents or contracting sexually transmitted infection that can have lifelong consequences. The next stage, number 6, is called early adulthood. The 20s and 30s are often thought of as early adulthood. So it is a time when we are at our psychological peak but are most at risk for involvement in violent crimes and substance abuse. It is a time of focusing on the future and putting a lot of energy into making choices that will help one earn the status of a full adult in the eyes of others. Love and work are primary concerns at this stage of life. Number 7, it is called middle adulthood. The late 30s through the mid-60s is referred to as middle adulthood. This is a period in which aging that began earlier becomes more noticeable, and a period at which many people are at their peak of productivity in love and work. It may be a period of gaining expertise in certain fields and being able to understand problems and find solutions with greater efficiency than before. It can also be a time of becoming more realistic about possibilities in life previously considered. of recognizing the difference between what is possible and what is likely. The last, it is called late adulthood or old age. So in this period of lifespan has increased in the last 100 years, particularly in industrialized countries. Late adulthood is sometimes subdivided into 2 or 3 categories, such as the young adult and old, or the young old, and oldest old. Young old, who are people between 65 and 79, and the old are those who are 80 and older. One of the primary differences between these groups is that the young old are very similar to middle-life adults, still working, still relatively healthy, and still interested in being productive and active. The old remain productive and active, and the majority continues to live independently, but risk of the diseases of old age, such as cancer and cerebrovascular disease, increases substantially for this age group. So a better way to appreciate the diversity of people in late adulthood is to go beyond chronological age and examine whether a person is experiencing optimal aging, normal aging, or impaired aging. So what are they? Now, well, this is your turn to find out from other sources about those 3 terms. So that's all our materials today about phases of development. Hopefully you can get such a great understanding towards the materials. And for your additional task, please find out the classifications of developmental phases according to different experts. Thank you for joining this class. See you again in the next meeting. Goodbye and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih sudah menyaksikan video pembelajaran ini. Jangan lupa like, komen, dan subscribe, serta nyalakan tanda loncengnya agar kalian tidak ketinggalan informasi update lainnya.
Hai adik-adik semua, kali ini kakak mau jelasin gimana caranya untuk mendaftar online di Universitas Teknokrat Indonesia. Baik, kita buka dulu websitenya di spmb.teknokrat.ac.id. Nah, kalian bisa lihat di sini untuk alur pendaftaran mahasiswa baru dan tes masuk online. Yang pertama, adik-adik harus membuat akun pendaftaran terlebih dahulu dengan memasukkan email dan password adik-adik ya. Setelah itu, adik-adik bisa login dengan memasukkan alamat email dan password yang sudah didaftarkan sebelumnya. Kemudian, adik-adik harus mengisikan data pribadi, data sekolah, dan pilihan program studi. Setelah semua data terisi, lalu klik daftar. Selanjutnya, adik-adik bisa mengunduh cetak kartu pendaftaran. Setelah mencetak kartu pendaftaran, adik-adik bisa melakukan pembayaran melalui bank atau ATM ke nomor rekening yang tertera pada kartu pendaftaran. Setelah adik-adik melakukan pembayaran, lalu foto dan upload bukti pembayaran ke sistem pada menu upload bukti pembayaran. Tunggu validasi dari Universitas Teknokrat Indonesia kurang lebih 1 kali 24 jam. Setelah tervalidasi, adik-adik bisa mencetak nomor ujian di menu cetak kartu ujian. Jika adik-adik semua sudah mempunyai nomor ujian, adik-adik bisa langsung melakukan tes online pada menu online tes di bagian menu utama. Pilih fakultas sesuai dengan program studi yang adik-adik pilih ya. Catatan untuk adik-adik semua. Untuk adik-adik yang mengambil jurusan di Fakultas Teknik dan Ilmu Komputer, adik-adik harus mengerjakan soal ujian 2 kali. Untuk Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis, mengerjakan ujian 1 kali, dan di Fakultas Sastra dan Ilmu Pendidikan, program studi Sastra Inggris dan Pendidikan Bahasa Inggris mengerjakan ujian 2 kali, program studi Pendidikan Matematika mengerjakan ujian 1 kali, dan khusus untuk program studi Pendidikan Olahraga, adik-adik mengerjakan 1 kali ujian kompetensi dasar dan 1 kali ujian tes fisik. Setelah memilih fakultas sesuai dengan program studi adik-adik, lalu pilih akses, pilih continue, isikan username dan password menggunakan nomor ujian. Lalu klik login, lalu klik ujian 1, klik ujian 1 tes kemampuan dasar. Untuk mulai mengerjakan soal, klik Start Attempt. Pastikan adik-adik mengerjakan soal sampai dengan selesai ya. Jangan lupa klik Finish Attempt dan scroll ke bawah. Klik Submit All and Finish. Untuk melihat hasil pengumuman tes, adik-adik bisa lihat di link spmb.teknokrat.ac.id. Dengan login kembali, lalu pilih menu pengumuman. Di sini akan tertera hasil tes adik-adik lulus atau tidak, dan adik-adik bisa mencetak slip pembayaran untuk melakukan pembayaran daftar ulang dengan nomor rekening masing-masing program studi. Nah, itu dia cara daftarnya lewat website di Universitas Teknokrat Indonesia. Semoga tutorial ini bermanfaat dan sampai jumpa di Universitas Teknokrat Indonesia, kampusnya sang juara.